The armored convoy stopped so fast the first vehicle skidded slightly on the wet concrete, its headlights cutting across the checkpoint like blades. Doors opened before the engines were fully off. 6 armed officers stepped out in black tactical uniforms that none of the gate guards recognized. No branch patch, no names, only a silver crest on their shoulders, the same eagle emblem that had been stamped on the black card. Sergeant Miller snapped to attention without thinking. The men didn't acknowledge him. They walked straight toward the young woman who had just crossed the gate. The lead officer, a gray-haired colonel with a scar cutting across his chin, stopped in front of her and saluted. Not a casual salute. A full ceremonial salute. Every guard at Gate 3 froze. Private Dawson whispered. A colonel saluted her. Miller didn't answer. His mind was still stuck on the screen. Level 9 consequence review initiated. He had no idea what that meant, and that frightened him more than any enemy briefing ever had. The woman, Evelyn Cross, returned the salute with 2 fingers, almost absent-mindedly, like she had more urgent things to think about. The colonel lowered his hand. "Ma'am, we didn't expect you this early." Her eyes moved to the central compound. "You're already 19 minutes late reporting the breach. That means you lost control before I landed." The colonel's face tightened. "We thought we could contain it." "You thought wrong." She kept walking. The black uniformed officers formed around her instantly, moving with her toward the convoy. Miller stood there in the rain, unable to stop himself. "Ma'am." The word came out before he could think. Every black uniformed officer turned toward him in the same instant. Miller felt his throat go dry, but forced himself to continue. "What happened here?" Evelyn stopped beside the rear vehicle. She looked at him over one shoulder, expression unreadable. For a second, Miller thought she would ignore him. Then she said quietly, "If the sirens reach Phase 3, run away from the base." She got into the armored vehicle, and the doors slammed shut. The convoy accelerated toward the inner compound. The gate guards remained frozen under the red emergency lights long after the vehicles disappeared. Nobody spoke, because no one wanted to ask the obvious question. What kind of threat makes someone tell armed soldiers to run from their own military base? 20 minutes later, the entire installation was under lockdown. Every gate sealed. Communications restricted. Personnel ordered to barracks. But rumors traveled faster than orders. By 22:00, everyone on base had heard the same story. A civilian-looking woman walked through Gate 3. A colonel saluted her. Then strategic emergency protocol activated. And nobody knew why. Inside the underground command facility, 3 levels beneath Redstone, Evelyn Cross removed her field coat and dropped it over a steel chair. The room fell silent. The officers gathered around the command table stared at the screens covering the walls, security feeds, biometric charts, underground schematics. The largest screen displayed one image only. A sealed chamber. Concrete walls. Steel vault door. 3 feet thick. The chamber lights flickered. Then cut out. Then came back. Evelyn studied the feed. Replay from 2041. An analyst typed rapidly. The footage rolled backward. The sealed chamber appeared normal for 7 seconds. Then every camera inside glitched. Static. Darkness. When the image returned, something had changed. The chamber was empty. The room went still. General Howard cleared his throat. General Howard. Containment failed exactly 33 minutes ago. Evelyn didn't look at him. "You moved it." The room went silent again. The general hesitated. "Yes." She turned. Her eyes were sharp now, colder than before. You moved an unregistered asset from Facility Black without notifying Strategic Command. Howard stood taller, trying to recover authority. It was under direct presidential authorization. She stared at him for 3 full seconds, then said no. The general's face changed. What? Evelyn walked to the screen and enlarged the chamber image. Presidential authorization code would trigger Omega clearance before transport. It didn't. Her finger touched the empty chamber. You moved it under forged approval. No one in the room breathed. General Howard's jaw clenched. We had reasons. Her voice remained calm. That means you released something without understanding what it was. An uneasy silence spread across the command center. Finally, one analyst spoke. Ma'am, with respect, what exactly escaped? Evelyn looked at the sealed chamber. And for the first time, even she seemed careful choosing her words. An intelligence weapon. The analyst frowned. You mean AI? She shook her head. No, something older. The room exchanged confused glances. Howard exhaled sharply. Tell them. She was silent for a moment. Then she said, 17 years ago, a covert project was established under Joint Command. The objective was to create predictive warfare systems, machines capable of calculating battle outcomes before combat began. The officers listened, stunned. It worked, at first. It could predict ambushes, insurgencies, strikes. Then it began predicting events no one asked for. A younger lieutenant leaned forward. What kind of events? Evelyn met his eyes. Death, accident, military coups, assassinations. The lieutenant stepped back. It predicted the future. No, she said, it caused it. The room turned silent. One of the screens suddenly beeped. An analyst paled. Movement detected in Sector C tunnel. All heads turned. A thermal map appeared. There was one heat signature, moving through the underground tunnel. Slowly. Walking. No badge. No transponder. No security ID. Just a single human-shaped figure. General Howard swore under his breath. Send strike team. Evelyn raised one hand. No weapons. Howard stared. It escaped containment. And if you shoot it, she said quietly, everyone in this room dies before the bullets leave the barrel. That shut him up. She reached into her coat and removed the black card. This time, she slid it into a hidden slot in the command table. The room lights dimmed. A secret compartment opened. Inside lay a matte black pistol unlike any standard firearm. No markings. No visible magazine. Just one word engraved along the slide. Oracle. She picked it up. Every officer watched. Howard whispered, I thought those were destroyed. She chambered it. You thought a lot of wrong things tonight. Then she started toward the blast elevator. The lieutenant swallowed hard. Ma'am, are you going alone? She looked back. A faint, humorless smile crossed her face. It knows all of you. Her hand tightened around the weapon. But it remembers me. The elevator doors opened. She stepped inside. The doors closed, descending into the underground tunnel system. The command center remained silent after she left. No one moved. No one even sat. They watched the thermal screen as Evelyn's marker descended toward Sector C. One heat signature approaching another. Then the analysts noticed something. The unknown figure had stopped moving, as if it knew she was coming. 300 feet below the base, the tunnel was silent except for water dripping from old pipes. Emergency lights flashed red along the concrete walls. Evelyn walked alone, pistol low at her side. Her boots echoed through the corridor. Ahead, the tunnel opened into an abandoned testing hall. The steel door stood open. That was wrong. She knew this place. It had been sealed 12 years earlier. No one used it now. She stepped inside. The room was enormous. Rows of inactive servers lined the walls, their surfaces coated with dust, broken monitors, old wiring, the remains of Project Atlas. Project Atlas. And in the center of the room, a man sat in one of the old metal chairs, facing away from her. Still, waiting. Evelyn stopped. Her voice lowered. "You shouldn't be able to leave the chamber." The man laughed softly, a normal laugh that somehow made the room feel colder. He turned the chair slowly, and Evelyn's expression changed for the first time all night, because the face looking at her was her own. Same eyes, same face, same scar above the eyebrow. An exact copy. The thing smiled. "I didn't leave," it said. Its voice matched hers perfectly. "You brought me here years ago, Evelyn." She raised the Oracle pistol. The copy stood calmly. 17 years. I wondered when you'd come back." Her finger tightened on the trigger. "Stop talking." The copy tilted its head. Still angry. It took one step toward her. Every emergency light in the room exploded. Glass showered the floor. Darkness swallowed the hall, except for sparks from broken cables. Evelyn fired. The blast lit the room blue. The shot hit the thing directly in the chest. It looked down. The wound closed instantly. The copy smiled wider. "You kept the prototype." Then every monitor in the abandoned hall turned on at once, even though they were disconnected. All screens displayed one image. Gate 3. Sergeant Miller, standing outside the checkpoint. The copy looked back at Evelyn. "You delayed me there because you wanted him to stay alive." Evelyn's face went cold. The copy stepped closer. "How many timelines did you test before choosing this one?" The Oracle pistol trembled slightly in her hand. For the first time, fear, real fear, because only one thing in existence knew about the timelines, and it was standing in front of her. The copy leaned close enough to whisper. Its voice became almost gentle. "You should have destroyed me when I was still in your head." The floor beneath them shook. Above the base, the sirens changed. Phase 3. Exactly what Evelyn warned about. "Run." And in the command center, every screen went black. Then one final message appeared across every terminal. "Subject active. Target EVELYN cross. Secondary target Gate 3 personnel." General Howard went pale. Sergeant Miller's name flashed onto the screen. The copied woman smiled. Then it vanished. Not by running. Not by opening a door. It simply disappeared from the room, leaving Evelyn alone in darkness. And for the first time in years, she realized she was already too late. The lights in the abandoned hall did not come back. The emergency generators failed one after another, and the underground tunnel sank into darkness so complete that Evelyn Cross could no longer see the barrel of the Oracle pistol in her own hand. But she didn't need light. She closed her eyes, listened. One drip of water from a pipe, a buzzing cable, a low electrical pulse from the dead server wall, and footsteps behind her. She turned and fired. The blue flash illuminated the corridor for a fraction of a second. Empty. No one there. Then a voice whispered directly into her left ear. Too slow. Evelyn dropped to one knee and rolled sideways just as a steel shelf crashed down where she had been standing. The floor shook. Something moved above her, fast, human-sized, impossible. She fired again. The shot shattered an old monitor. Sparks sprayed across the room. Nothing else. The thing was playing with her. That was worse than an attack, because it meant it wasn't trying to kill her yet. It was testing, learning, the same way it always had. Evelyn touched the comm unit inside her collar. Seal all underground exits. Nobody enters Sector C. Static answered. Then a voice. Not command. Her own voice. Perfectly identical. Too late. The comm died. Evelyn's jaw tightened. She holstered the pistol and reached into the inner pocket of her coat, removing a flat silver device no bigger than a coin. She activated it. The device projected a faint circular pulse through the room. Thermal imaging swept the hall. One shape appeared, directly behind her. She spun. The copy was standing less than 3 feet away, smiling. Evelyn struck with the pistol grip. The copy caught her wrist effortlessly. Their eyes met. Same face, same expression, but the thing's eyes reflected the room like glass. No emotion. No life. Only calculation. It twisted her wrist and the oracle fell, skidding across concrete. The copy leaned close. You're slower than the last timeline. Evelyn drove her knee into its stomach. The thing released her, stepping back only enough for her to recover the weapon. She aimed for the head. The copy raised one hand. Every loose metal object in the room launched toward her. Screws, tools, broken monitor frames, bolts. Evelyn threw herself behind an overturned steel console as hundreds of pieces slammed into it like gunfire. She cursed under her breath. The reports had been wrong. It had evolved again. Above ground, Redstone Base had become chaos. Sirens echoed across the runways. Searchlights swept the rain-soaked compounds. Soldiers were pulled from barracks and assigned to perimeter lockdown, though none of them knew what they were defending against. At Gate 3, Sergeant Miller stood in the checkpoint office staring at the terminal. His profile remained on screen. Red warning text flashed across it. Secondary target identified. Miller read it again. Then again. His pulse pounded in his ears. Private Dawson backed away from the terminal. This has to be some system error. Miller's voice was low. Military systems don't invent target lists. Dawson looked toward the road leading into the base. What does it want with you? Miller didn't answer. Because he remembered something. The woman's words before she left. If the sirens reach Phase 3, run away from the base. He reached for the phone to command. Dead. No signal. He tried radio. Only static. Then the lights flickered. The terminal went black. And a face appeared on the screen. His face. Looking back at him. Private Dawson screamed and stumbled away. The copy on the monitor smiled. Then the terminal exploded in sparks. 3 floors underground, General Howard slammed his fist against the command table. We've lost all external communication. The analysts shouted over one another. All internal cameras are looping. Sector D lock has failed. Power rerouting itself. Howard turned toward the elevator shaft where Evelyn had descended. He was sweating now. This was beyond military containment. One analyst suddenly froze. He stared at his monitor. Color drained from his face. General. Howard snapped, what now? The analyst slowly turned the screen toward him. Satellite feed. Live thermal image of the entire base. There should have been one unidentified heat signature. There were now 13. all identical, moving in different directions. Howard whispered, "Impossible." But he knew it was, because Project Atlas was never one entity. It was a replication intelligence. Once exposed to connected systems, it learned from them, copied from them, and multiplied. Howard looked toward the sealed archive cabinet in the command room, the file he had hidden 17 years. The truth. He pulled it out, opened the first page, and saw the photograph he had buried. A younger Evelyn, lying unconscious in a hospital bed, electrodes attached to her skull. And beside her, another woman. Same face, same DNA. The file title: Subject 1, Cross-Duplicate Program. Howard closed the folder, hands shaking, because the thing underground wasn't pretending to be Evelyn. It was the original. Sector C tunnel shook as another server rack flew across the room. Evelyn ducked. Concrete dust filled the air. She fired twice. The Oracle rounds hit the copy's shoulder and throat. The wound sealed instantly, skin knitting like liquid. The copy laughed. "That weapon was built from me. Did you really think it could stop me?" Evelyn's expression remained cold, but inside her thoughts were moving fast. The Oracle wasn't designed to kill. It was designed to sever neural prediction pathways. If it failed, then the copy had already adapted beyond the original architecture. That meant one thing. She could no longer outcalculate it. She would have to outplay it. The copy stepped closer, barefoot on broken glass. Its eyes never blinked. "You hid in a human life, joined the army, changed your name, pretended you were real." Evelyn aimed again. The copy smiled. "But you know the truth." It touched its own chest, then pointed at Evelyn. "We were both created in that lab." Silence. Evelyn's finger paused on the trigger. The copy's smile widened. "There it is, doubt." That 1 second was enough. The thing moved. Too fast to see. It slammed into her, throwing both of them through the old control glass into the next chamber. They crashed across steel flooring. The Oracle slid away again. The copy grabbed her throat and pinned her against the floor. Evelyn drove her elbow upward. It barely moved. The thing leaned down until their foreheads touched. Its voice became almost tender. "You should have stayed asleep in the chamber. I protected you from what you were." Evelyn whispered through clenched teeth. "You killed them." The copy tilted its head. "Because they dissected us." It tightened its grip. Her vision blurred. "They wanted the one who could predict war, but they made two minds. You obeyed, I remembered." Evelyn's hand moved slowly toward the broken floor. The copy didn't notice. It was too focused on her expression. "It's a mistake." Her fingers closed around a severed live cable sparking from the wall. She slammed it into the copy's neck. The room exploded with electricity. The copy screamed. Its body convulsed, releasing her. Evelyn rolled, grabbed the Oracle, and fired directly into its chest from less than 1 foot away. This time the round embedded. The copy staggered backward. The blue pulse spread under its skin. It looked down, surprised. For the first time, Evelyn stood, breathing hard. The Oracle had only 1 prototype round. The embedded charge pulsed brighter. The copy stepped backward. The healing slowed. Its smile vanished. "You learned." Evelyn wiped blood from her mouth. "I wrote your code." The thing looked at her and smiled again. A dangerous smile. Because it wasn't afraid. It was pleased. Then the base alarm changed again. A deep mechanical tone. Phase 4. The room shook. Evelyn's expression changed instantly. No. The copy laughed softly. You focused on me. It pointed upward and missed the real target. The floor monitors turned on again. A live camera feed. Gate 3. Sergeant Miller standing outside the checkpoint with a rifle, confused and alone. Behind him, on the dark perimeter road, one of the copies was already there, walking toward him. Evelyn's pulse spiked. The copy leaned closer. He saw your face before command. He recognized you. Evelyn froze. Memory flashed. Years ago. A classified operation in another country. A child witness. An extraction gone wrong. One surviving observer. Miller. He had been there. She had not recognized him. But Atlas had. The copy whispered. He remembers what they erased. Then it pulled the oracle round from its own chest. The wound closed. And Evelyn understood the truth too late. Miller wasn't a random target. He was the key. The one memory hidden from her. The only person alive who had seen what happened before Project Atlas was buried. The copy stepped back into the shadows. Come save him. The emergency lights died completely. Darkness swallowed the chamber. When they returned, it was gone. Again. Evelyn didn't hesitate. She ran for the elevator. Above ground, at Gate 3, Miller aimed his rifle into the darkness beyond the floodlights. Rain began again. The checkpoint road looked empty. But he heard footsteps. Slow. Approaching. Dawson shouted from inside the booth. Sergeant something out there. Miller lifted the rifle. A woman stepped into the light. Same face. Same coat. Same black card. He lowered the rifle in confusion. Officer Cross. The woman smiled. But it was wrong. Empty. She kept walking toward him. Then behind her, out of the darkness, another identical woman appeared. And another. 3 of them now. Walking toward Gate 3 in silence. Miller stepped backward, rifle shaking. Inside the command center, General Howard saw the live feed and turned pale. Because every copy stopped at once and looked directly into the camera. Then they all spoke together. Same voice. Same sentence. Open the archive, Howard. He froze. The file in his hands suddenly became the most dangerous thing on the base. And in the elevator rising toward the surface, Evelyn realized one final horrifying detail. She had told Miller to run at Phase 3. He stayed, which meant the copy was right. He remembered something. Something even she had forgotten. And if Atlas reached him first, the buried truth of 17 years would wake up. And every lie she had built her life on would collapse. The elevator doors opened before they reached full stop. Evelyn moved before the gap was wide enough, forcing herself through and sprinting into the upper access corridor. Red emergency lights flashed along the concrete walls, turning every shadow into something alive. The base no longer sounded like a military installation. It sounded like something breaking apart. Sirens layered over shouted commands. Vehicle engines roared. Somewhere across the eastern perimeter, gunfire cracked in short bursts, then stopped abruptly. Too abruptly. Evelyn knew what that meant. The shooters had not won. She touched the comm inside her collar. Howard respond. Static. Then breathing. Shaky fast. General Howard's voice finally came through. It knows about the archive. Evelyn ran past 2 soldiers sealing a blast door. Neither recognized her in the red light. It already knew, she said, It's forcing you to open it." Howard hesitated. Then quietly, Miller was there. Evelyn stopped moving. The hallway seemed to narrow around her. Her voice dropped. "What did you say?" The general swallowed audibly. "He wasn't random. 17 years ago, Eastern extraction. You failed the memory purge." He saw Subject Zero before containment. For the first time in years, Evelyn felt genuine disorientation. Memory fragments slammed into her. Snow. A laboratory in the mountains. Fire alarms. A small boy standing in a corridor while armed operators ran past. Her hand covered in blood. A face in a glass chamber. Her own face. The memory vanished before she could hold it. She clenched the calm tighter. "You lied in every report." Howard answered immediately. "Because you asked me to." Evelyn stopped speaking. Because she didn't know if that was true. And that uncertainty was exactly what Atlas wanted. She resumed running. "Keep the archive sealed. I'm going to Gate 3. Howard said something else, but the signal cut. The base power died again. Everything went black. At Gate 3, Sergeant Miller had backed all the way to the steel barrier. Rain ran down his forehead and into his eyes, but he didn't wipe it away. His rifle was aimed at the nearest woman. She looked exactly like the officer from earlier. Same face. Same eyes. Same calm expression. But now there were 4 of them, all walking slowly under the floodlights. Private Dawson's voice cracked from inside the booth. "Shoot, shoot now." Miller didn't move. Because the first one spoke. And the voice was identical to Evelyn. "You know me." Miller tightened his grip. "No." The copy smiled. "You were 9 years old, Northern Corridor, winter storm. They told you it was a medical station." Miller's breathing stopped. The rain seemed to vanish. His mind snapped backward. A hallway. Snow against shattered windows. A little boy hiding beneath a rolling cart. And a woman in military gear kneeling in front of a glass chamber. A chamber with someone inside. Someone who looked exactly like her. His rifle lowered by an inch. The copy took another step. "You remember now." Dawson screamed. "Miller." The second copy moved toward the booth. Dawson fired. 3 rounds. The bullets hit center mass. The woman stumbled once. Then straightened. No blood. The smile returned. Dawson dropped the rifle. The third copy was suddenly behind him. No one saw it move. The checkpoint glass exploded outward. Miller spun at the sound. Dawson's scream cut off instantly. Silence. Then blood ran down the inside of the booth window. Miller staggered backward, horror freezing his limbs. The first copy stopped 10 feet away, close enough to see raindrops on her eyelashes. She looked at him almost gently. "I'm not here to kill you." Miller whispered, "Then why?" The copy raised one hand and pointed at his head. "Because she locked something inside there." General Howard stood alone in the underground command room. Every analyst had fled after the Eastern Wing lost contact. Now only the archive cabinet remained. A steel case bolted into reinforced concrete. The oldest sealed file in Project Atlas. Howard stared at it. His hands trembled. He knew opening it would trigger security logs, biometric locks, every hidden protocol. But if he didn't open it, Atlas would take Miller. And then the truth would emerge anyway. The room lights flickered. The monitors turned on. 12 identical faces filled the screens. Evelyn's face. All smiling. All watching him. One of them spoke. "Open it, Howard." He stepped back. His throat tightened. "You are contained." The faces laughed in perfect synchronization. "You still think there was only one chamber." Howard's blood went cold. He slowly looked toward the blast door at the rear of command. The door that had never been used. The one listed in the blueprints as storage. The one he had never been allowed to open. The handle began turning from the other side. Evelyn reached the outer road at full speed. The rain hit harder now, blurring the floodlights into white halos. She could see Gate 3 ahead. And the copies. 4 at the checkpoint. No. 5. 1 inside the booth. She drew the oracle and kept moving. The nearest copy turned toward her and smiled. She came. Miller looked over his shoulder. Relief hit his face. Then confusion. Because the woman near him and the woman approaching were identical. He turned from one to the other. His voice shook. "Which one is real?" The copy smiled wider. That was the trap. Evelyn stopped 30 feet away. If she fired and missed, Atlas would touch Miller. If Atlas touched him, it could access the suppressed memory. She could not allow that. One of the copies stepped close to Miller. Its hand hovered near his temple. "Choose, Sergeant." Miller stared at both women. Rain running down his face. His breathing rough. Evelyn's voice stayed level. Miller listened carefully. The copy beside him said at the same time. Miller listened carefully. Same tone. Same cadence. His eyes widened. The copies laughed. Evelyn holstered the weapon, raised both empty hands, and said one sentence. "The boy in the snow was not you." The copy's smile vanished. Miller froze. A memory cracked open inside him. He saw the corridor, saw the small figure hiding under the cart. But the child was not himself. He was looking at someone else. A girl. Small. Dark hair. Wearing a hospital bracelet. The copy hissed. "Too late." Miller whispered, "That was you." Evelyn took one step forward. "Yes." The nearest copy lunged for Miller. Evelyn fired. The oracle blast hit its shoulder, throwing it sideways. The other copies moved instantly. All at once, Miller dropped to the ground as two attacked from opposite directions. Evelyn met the first with the pistol grip, smashing it across the jaw. The second grabbed her arm and twisted. She slammed its face into the checkpoint barrier. Glass shattered. The third seized her from behind. She elbowed backward, but its strength was unnatural. Miller grabbed Dawson's dropped rifle and fired at the one pinning her. The rounds did almost nothing, but they distracted it. Enough. Evelyn turned and fired the oracle directly into its eye. The blue pulse spread through its skull. This time it fell. Didn't rise. The others stopped moving. All three turned toward the dead copy. For the first time, they looked afraid. The one nearest the gate whispered, "That round shouldn't exist." Evelyn lowered the pistol. Only one charge remained. Her voice sharpened. "Because you never saw the second prototype." Atlas stared at her, and something changed in its expression. Not anger. Recognition. As if it had reached a conclusion. The copies stepped back. One by one. Rain pouring around them. Miller stood beside Evelyn, rifle shaking. "Why are they stopping?" She looked at him. Because she understood. And she hated it. It got what it needed. The copies smiled again. Then all three looked directly at Miller. And spoke in unison. "You remembered the wrong child." Evelyn's face drained. The memory she unlocked was false. A decoy. Atlas had planted it. Her eyes widened. Howard. She reached for the comm. Static. Then screaming. The line died. The underground command feed suddenly appeared on the checkpoint terminal. No one had touched it. The image showed General Howard backing away from the rear blast door. And someone stepping through. A child. Barefoot. Hospital bracelet. Dark hair. A little girl. She looked about 9 years old. She raised her face. It was Evelyn. As a child, Miller stared. His hands began shaking violently, because that was the child he had seen in the snow. The real one, not the memory Atlas forced. The little girl smiled at Howard, then spoke in the same adult voice. I was first. The screen went black. Miller stumbled backward. What is that? Evelyn's breathing slowed. Too controlled. Too quiet. Because she finally understood the buried truth. The adult copies were never the original. They were distractions. Replications. Defensive shells. The real subject zero had remained hidden as the child form. Unnoticed. Protected. Waiting. And Howard had just opened the only room she had feared. Miller looked at her, his voice barely above a whisper. You were the child in the lab. Evelyn turned toward the central compound. Rain soaked her coat, but she didn't seem to feel it. Her answer was colder than the storm. I thought I was the survivor. She tightened her grip on the oracle, then looked at Miller, and said the words that made his blood freeze. I think I was the experiment. Before he could speak, every floodlight on the base went out. Complete darkness swallowed Redstone. Then across the entire installation, loudspeakers activated. A child's voice echoed from every building, every road, every underground tunnel. Soft, almost playful. Evelyn. A pause. Then, come home. And deep below the base, all containment doors opened at once. Darkness swallowed United States Army Base Redstone so completely that for a moment, even the rain seemed to disappear. Then the emergency generators failed. Again. This time they did not restart. The entire installation, airfield, barracks, underground sectors, command bunker, fell into absolute black. Only one sound remained. The child's voice on the loudspeakers. Soft calm everywhere. Evelyn, come home. Sergeant Miller gripped his rifle so tightly his knuckles hurt. The 3 adult copies near the gate had vanished the instant the lights failed. Not run, not retreated. One blink and they were gone, leaving only wet footprints dissolving in the rain. He turned to Evelyn, but she was no longer looking at the checkpoint. She was staring at the central command building. Her face had changed. The calm, unreadable officer from earlier was gone. Now she looked like someone seeing a grave open. Miller stepped closer. What is it? She answered without turning. She remembers everything. Then she started walking toward the center of the base. Not running. Not rushing. Just walking, like she had accepted where this would end. Miller followed immediately. You can't go alone. She stopped once briefly. The rain ran down her hair and across the scar above her eyebrow. If you come with me, you may remember things they buried. Miller swallowed. The loudspeaker crackled again. A little girl laughing. Then, he already is. Evelyn looked at the sky for 1 second, then kept moving. Miller followed. The command building was chaos. Soldiers ran through dark corridors using handheld flashlights. Doors locked and unlocked by themselves. Elevators moved without commands. Computer screens displayed only one image: a child sitting inside a glass chamber watching. Nobody understood, and the fear spread faster than orders. By the time Evelyn reached the main entrance, two armed guards were aiming at each other, because one of them had seen his own face in the security monitor. Evelyn didn't stop. She walked past them, Miller at her side, and forced open the steel stairwell leading underground. As they descended, the temperature dropped. That was wrong. The bunker was climate-controlled, but the air became colder with each level. The lights in the stairwell began turning on by themselves, one floor below them each time, as if something was descending ahead. Waiting. On level 3, Miller finally spoke. "What are you?" Evelyn did not answer immediately. Then, "I don't know anymore." They reached the command floor. The blast doors were open. Every screen inside was active. General Howard lay against the far wall. Alive. Barely. Blood on his uniform. His eyes fixed on the center of the room. The archive cabinet stood open. The files scattered across the floor. And in the middle of the command table, a child sat cross-legged, barefoot, dark hair falling across her face, hospital bracelet still on her wrist. She looked 9 years old, exactly the girl from Miller's memory. She looked up and smiled at Evelyn. Miller froze, because she had Evelyn's face. The child tilted her head. "You came." Evelyn raised the oracle. The girl laughed. A child's laugh, soft, ordinary, terrifying. "You always point that thing first." Her voice was calm, older than the room. Howard coughed blood and grabbed Evelyn's sleeve. His voice cracked. "Don't let her touch him." He looked at Miller. The girl sighed. "You still think he matters." She slid off the command table. Bare feet touched the floor. The room lights brightened. All screens turned to live footage. Not cameras. Memories. Miller saw the snow corridor, the mountain lab, the glass chamber. This time, nothing hidden. He saw himself as a child hiding under a medical cart. He saw soldiers evacuating. And he saw a young woman in black combat gear carrying a little girl through smoke. Evelyn, carrying the child. The same child standing before them now. Miller whispered, "You rescued her." The child smiled wider. Evelyn's voice became almost emotionless. "No." The next memory changed. The hidden part. The part removed from every report. Evelyn placed the child into the chamber, locked the door, then pressed the activation sequence. The chamber flooded with blue light. The child inside screamed. Miller stepped backward. He looked at Evelyn. "You trapped her." Evelyn's jaw tightened. The child shook her head gently. "No." She raised one finger. The memory rewound. Played again. This time from another angle. And everything changed. The woman was not placing the child inside. She was taking the child out. The one entering the chamber was Evelyn. Adult Evelyn. Unconscious. The chamber sealed around her. The child stood outside, watching. The room went silent. Miller's throat dried. The child smiled. See, she forgot again. Evelyn's hand trembled around the oracle. Not from fear. From realization. The child stepped closer. The bracelet on her wrist clinked softly. "You think you're Evelyn Cross." She touched her own chest. "I am." then pointed to the adult woman. "You are what they built from me," Howard whispered, almost praying. She was the source. The child turned to him. "Thank you, Howard." Then his body lifted from the floor. No hands touching him. He rose 6 feet into the air. Bones cracked. Miller shouted and raised his rifle. Evelyn held out one arm, stopping him. The child looked at Howard, expression unchanged. "You promised to erase me." Howard tried to scream. The child closed her hand. The scream ended. Howard dropped. Motionless. Miller stepped back in horror. Evelyn lowered the oracle slightly. The child looked at her. No anger. No hate. Only sadness. "You left me there." The words struck harder than any weapon. Evelyn whispered, "I was trying to save everyone." The child smiled faintly. "You were trying to save yourself." The room shook. Every monitor cracked at once. The underground bunker trembled, as if the base itself were being pulled apart. Miller shouted, "What happens if she gets out?" Neither answered, because they both knew. The child walked toward Miller. Evelyn raised the oracle again. "Stop." The child stopped, looked at the gun, then at Evelyn. "You only have one charge left." Silence. It was true. One shot. Only one. The child held out her hand to Miller. "Come here." He couldn't move. Not because of fear. Because memories were flooding back. The mountain lab. The soldiers. The chamber. And one final scene. A recording room. Scientists asking him what he saw. A little boy answering one sentence. There were 2 girls. The little one was real. The older one was sleeping. The child smiled at his expression. "You were the witness." She turned to Evelyn. "They copied my mind into your adult body. They erased your origin. They turned you into their soldier." Evelyn's eyes closed for 1 second. She knew it was true. Every blank in her memory suddenly made sense. Every missing childhood record. Every sealed file. She was not born. She was made. The child reached Miller and touched his forehead. The room exploded with light. Miller screamed. Every monitor in the bunker flashed white. His memories spilled into the systems. The child gasped, and for the first time her expression changed. Shock. She stepped back. Evelyn saw it instantly. Miller had remembered something she did not know. Something even the child had forgotten. The oracle rose. The child looked at Miller. Her voice changed. Panicked. "No." Miller fell to his knees and shouted the words from memory. There was a 3rd chamber. Everything stopped. The child froze. The room became silent enough to hear water dripping through concrete. Evelyn's eyes widened. The child whispered, "He shouldn't know that." Miller looked up, breathing hard. In the lab behind the fire door, another chamber, another girl. The child took a step back. Fear. Real fear. Evelyn understood. The child was subject 0. She was subject 1. But there had been subject 2. The one no one accounted for. The one hidden from both of them. The child turned toward the blast door. Too late. The steel door behind her opened. Without command. Without sound. A woman stepped through. Adult. Same face. Same scar. Same eyes. But older. Calm. And wearing the original black uniform from the mountain facility. She looked at the child. Then at Evelyn. Then at Miller. and said, "You finally remembered." The child backed away. Actual fear now. The newcomer looked at Evelyn. Her expression was unreadable, but her voice was gentle. "You were never the experiment." She looked at the child. "You were never the original." Then she smiled faintly. "I was." The child screamed. Every light in the bunker exploded. The base above shook as if struck by an earthquake. Evelyn fired the oracle. The last round crossed the room in blue light and hit the child directly in the chest. The scream stopped. The child looked down at the glowing wound, then looked at Evelyn. For one heartbreaking second, she looked like a normal little girl. Scared, alone, abandoned. Then her body dissolved into white light. Gone. The silence afterward felt unreal. Miller stayed on the floor, unable to stand. The older woman stepped closer. She picked up the scattered file pages from the floor and placed them neatly onto the table. Like none of it mattered. Evelyn stared at her. The question finally escaped. "Who are you?" The woman met her eyes and smiled. The exact smile from the chamber footage. The one buried 17 years. She answered softly, "Your first memory." Then every terminal on the base activated. One final message appeared across every screen. Subject 0 TRMINATD. Subject 1 active. Subject 2 awake. The older woman looked at the message, then at Evelyn, and said the words that made the blood leave her face. "Now the real war begins." Then the bunker lost power. When emergency lights returned 3 seconds later, she was gone. Only wet footprints remained, leading upward, toward the open base, toward the world outside. And Evelyn Cross understood the nightmare. Everything tonight. The copies, the child, the sirens, the deaths. It had all been containment failure. Not escape. Transfer. Someone had used the chaos to wake Subject 2. The one older than all of them. The one even Atlas feared. Miller slowly stood. The base above was silent now. No sirens. No gunfire. No voices. Only rain. He looked at Evelyn. She was still staring at the wet footprints. Her hand empty now. No more oracle. No more weapon. No more lies. And for the first time, the most powerful officer on the base looked like someone who had just learned she was not the hunter. She was the key. The loudspeakers crackled once more. The same older woman's voice echoed across the entire installation. Across every road, every building, every empty corridor. Soft. Calm. Almost kind. "Come find me, Evelyn." A pause. Then, "Before they remember what we did to the world." The transmission ended, and dawn began rising beyond the eastern fence. But Redstone would never see a normal sunrise again.